we got mail. Fault gaiters. And these are T250. Whoop. This is what cheerleaders do. So they fit. They'll be fine. So we can put it back together. Speedo driving this thing's really scratchy and horrible. I've got it nice and smooth now. There's a complicated seal. I've tried to get it out gently. Not going to budge. This turned well. This wheel here, the little worm, was pretty mucked up. But ideally I'd like to pull it apart, but I can't get into it without destroying the seal, and I couldn't find one. I've soaked it in CRC, stuck my thumb over there, shaken it, poured it out. Done that a few times now. And I've just got a syringe full of just bearing grease, and I'm just pushing it in and then pushing the other stuff out. And you can see the grease has emerged now. Not a bad way to do it, and probably not the best way to do it though. But it's packed it effectively, but it's also sort of packed it in with some muck, obviously. But look, I can't do too much about that at this point. I just want to get the thing mobile. Right, tricky. There's like a Bakelite plug that has a rib on it that fits down the thread where the speedo cable goes, or at least in the thread down here. Really easy to break. I did chip the edge of it. I'm just going to send that home, and that will seal. There's also an O-ring that sits on the edge of that drive, but it doesn't take long to sort of thread down, but it's exceedingly fragile. It looks like Bakelite of all materials. It actually does look like that. And there's an O-ring, a special seal that goes in, and that one doesn't look too bad, so that's going back in the hole like that. That'll stop anything working its way up the speedo cable, and that'll work. That's working fine now. It feels very smooth and nice and pleasant. Have you ever noticed when you turn a camera on is when you make every mistake? Or when someone else turns a camera on, it's when you look your worst. There we go. Whoop, look at that. Woohoo! Speedo drive. Never turned like that before. That is going to be fine. Probably enough, the first thing we're going to do is put the handlebars on, because these are sort of sitting there on nuts. Just got to make sure they're true. So I'll just clamp the bars in, tighten these things up. There's castellated nuts I've got to put a split pin through. That dome washers for the rear shocks. So I'll put one on the end of these as well. So that's just sort of all sitting there. That's a bit tight. There we go. So I'll get the bars and stick them on. It's going to start getting front heavy, so I'm just going to chuck the back wheel on. So we've got, this is weird. We've got this bit which has got a flat sort of drive part there for the chain tension, and of course those flat bits marry up with this. That's just for your push drive, and the stand's wobbly. I'm just going to stick that there for now. I'm just trying to distribute weight better. Hang on, go. What are you doing? I'm doing it left-handed, but I'm right-handed. Beautiful and true, which is what we need. Yeah, actually, no, maybe it will do the front. It's quite a shame about these boots. The measurements all look good. These fit into the top of the forks well. That sort of embossed part on the inside is too wide for the 250. You can see there, that's probably 5-6 millimeters. That's closer to probably 9 or so, I don't know. So getting it to stay in there is quite challenging. So I'm not really sure how I can do that and make it look good. It does fit into the bottom, but yeah, they're not quite right. I thought it just sounded too good to be true, but anyway, look, we'll put it on. These go really well into here. I had to put a tiny bit of CRC on the other one just to slide it over, but it just clicked in beautifully. Okay, there. We've got rubbers and stuff to go in now. Maybe stick it up through there for that. Now, oops, stay there. These are made up of T250 and GT250 bits. Hang on, which way's up? That way's up. So that rubber goes there. We've got this guy here. This guy here that sits on top. Alright, let's see how this looks, because I think it looks funny. Let's have a look, hey? And we'll see how it goes. And if we have to revisit it, and if it looks silly, well, what we're going to do about it. Just trying to get some weight distribution going on here. The front wants to fall forward too heavily, if you know what I mean, which doesn't really matter that much. I'm just wondering if we put... see how we go. Oh, these look like these are the only ones I can get. Oh, that'll be right. They're not too bad. I'll put the opening toward the centre. I'm just wondering, that might not be... That's not going to close down. Okay, let me get this bit in. I'll have a look. Oh, that bloody hurt. Is that straight? Why is that? I might have to stick another washer behind there. So I've got an inner washer on. These look alright at the top. I might use a slightly smaller one on the bottom. That's alright, because they look better anyway. And I've only got two of them. So, is that going to go on? Yes, it is. This is the one I'm worried about though, because it's just a little bit... I might put two of them there for now. That's the worst thing you can do in terms of appearances, but what do? Who gives a rat's at this stage? We're just got to get the thing rolling. That might push the dome off actually. I'll just nip it a bit. There's an old saying. It's called "She'll be right." Righty, I've got to put this on the front guard. Chrome's a little bit, how you going? And the front of it's all dented and horrible, but it's all I've got for now. So, there we go. I think that sounds like Clio. Is that Clio or is that the shed? And these are Toyota Starlet bolts because it's all I've got in a shouldered 8mm, but hopefully nobody notices that. We'll zap them up. So this is going to ruin the appearance of something that's supposed to look brand new. It doesn't anymore. Not going to spend any money on this stuff. Like, if one dropped in my lap that was better, I'd grab it. But it's just not worth it, you know what I mean? Like it's just not worth going that far. So I'm just going to tighten up these 4 bolts up here. When you put these on, you have to sort of put these braces, I guess you call them, on first, because there's a little bit of movement. And if you don't do it, they don't tighten up, they don't line up. I'm just being really ginger with this because it's moving around on that jack. Got the front wheel. I've just put a tiny, you can see a bluish hue on there. It's just a minute bit of grease there. The speeder drive goes on this side. So I'm tipping, that goes there. And we'll put it in there. Yep, that's what's right. Speedo drive in here, like that. And this guy goes on last. And then we tighten him up. That sounds like a dog moaning. That's actually the shed. So I'm just going to nip those up. Get a couple of AFS's and we're good. Right, which way does this go? That way. This is Dave's jack that I'm using. Oh, I've got the camera, the tripod's right in the way. Hang on a minute. Try and wangle him under. And it's absolutely fantastic because you can just, like I'm by myself. Well, Susie was sitting there a minute ago. Just lower it, oops, sorry. Just lower it on there. Okay, so we'll just tighten this up. Susie started talking about the kids.
He is a whore.
I'm not a whore. Right, this should be good. So if I lift the front up, we've got a spinny wheel, which is really kind of cool. So let's have a bit of a look around.
Lift my front up.
Susie. Alright, so if I lower that, I need to buy one of these. This is Dave's. Hope it doesn't scratch the timber. Right, so we do need to clean up a bit. That looks rather nice. Guard's knackered. I can't do much with that, you know what I mean? I just haven't got the money or the inclination to get a new one at the moment. I left these the right way up. They just looked terrible before. And you know what? They're not that great now. They're a little thick set for this machine, given that they're for a 750 instead of a 250. Rear, well, same sort of deal. I'm just going to put the back wheel together and the thing will be rolling around in no time. So I'm quite happy with that. We're running out of daylight now. I've got to go and have some dinner and maybe get Susie some dinner. I bought you lunch today, but I think I need to get you some dinner. Anyway, that's it for today. It doesn't look too bad today, but I'm not kidding. About 2 seconds ago, there were small hailstones coming down. It's also quite windy. So working on this out here is not very good. You can see the rear guard is also not very good, but the seat covers it to back here somewhere. So it's pretty messed up in there. Not much we can do. The other thing is 10125 dome nuts. We'll take that off and clean it. I haven't cleaned that. Pretty much unique to bikes, I think. Couldn't find any. So I'll just leave those there for now. Doesn't matter. That's less than ideal. Just got to finish these sausage rolls. Well, it's windy outside, as we've been talking about. I've got these ready to go on. Just rewired a couple of bits and pieces, you know, where they join, that sort of thing, and wrap them. So the wiring, if I'm not using fabric tape, I'm using, pardon me, this stuff, which is proper Water-Lex tape. It doesn't degrade and leave a sticky residue behind like the other stuff does. This is our aftermarket taillight. Chintzy plastic. You know it's cheap because it's got everything held in with self-tappers instead of machine screws, which you get with plastic. Can't do much about that. Reflectors are here. The reflectors are actually wired individually. They're just sort of terminated in these bullet things. So we can take those off and just connect the original fitting. And what is quite interesting is it's got these 23 8-watt small bolt for the stop taillights. Normally they're 21.7 or something, I think, I don't know, but they're normally a larger housing like you would find in a car. They're still 12 volt. Quite interesting to put those in. Now what I wanted to do is fit this aftermarket. Now again, the original one is so much more desirable, but it's got a great big chunk out of it, which means it's going to let moisture in. Now this, on the other hand, or on the similar hand, whatever you want to call it, is no better. If you look at that, hang on, which one's it going? It doesn't go that way, does it? You've still got these gaps. So theoretically, that's not roadworthy either. Unless I can stick it that way, have them facing down the bottom and just hope like heck no one sees it. There's no actual gasket there, so they're pretty crummy. But you know what? If it gets me through, as I said with the gauges, if it gets me through roadworthy, it's a good thing. Now this came with 6mm fasteners, which are very short, and nut on the back, so there's very little left to go into here. That being said, this is 5mm, so essentially we're going to have to use the old 5mm fasteners and stick this back on the mount. Now that mount's rubbish. It looks awful. The seat comes back here, so you don't see that bit of rust there, but it's just rattle can under here. That's what I've used a rattle can for. You and I both know that's just going to all peel off eventually, but at the moment this is quite a hurried sort of gig, so I'm just sort of trying to get it sort of in one piece so it can have its roadworthy examination. And it sort of made it necessary to pull the whole thing apart to mount it if I wanted to keep the old 5mm threads. So I'll wrap these. Oh, look at this, it's already bloody come off. Look at that. Chintzy rubbish is about the only way I can put it. This is why original stuff's so much better. Just try and get some of that off. Just tin that, should be good. And tin him up, which is cool. Now we've got to get this to stick. Which it has, so that is quite cool. Alright. As with the Speedo and tack, it's just to get me through roadworthy. It's not the best quality. It does look shiny, and it will let red light come out. This is really quite poor. It's no way of sealing moisture in the back there, and they've got those little cutouts underneath, which is average. But this bike won't be getting wet. So hopefully that's alright. Now this looks pretty horrible down in this area here. Once we get a motorcycle plate on there, that'll cover a good deal of it. Failing that, we can always use the Wisconsin one, which is a little bit bigger. It's colder end of the world up there, so they have more rust. And if that doesn't work, We'll go for the Alberta plate because it's really cold up there and lots of rust. And if all else fails, we can just use a car rego one that'll cover the whole back of the bike. So the wind's up. I'm not going to stick around down here too much. You can see the tail light on. It's kind of alright. We'll just pop those instruments on now, I think, and I've got to go and do some chores. Gee, the wind's a pain. What are we doing with these? I'll put a bit of CRC on those things because since they've been powder coated, they stick in the rubbers. They're actually quite difficult to get in. Come on. There we go. Washer, lock nut and dome nut. And we should be good. Tricky to get to though. And these are the fasteners that didn't plate that well. I'm using two new 6mm dome nuts. If you can hear me, the wind's coming right up. When Susie goes out, I'll take the bike inside. But my daughter's a little squealer. She's Susie's snout, so to speak. She'll tell her. There we go. What do you think? It's not too bad, is it? Hopeful that the wind isn't going to make this sound crummy. Oh, great. Now the wind's come up. So I've sort of got the camera on that angle. I'm just going to try and feed this wheel in. The Cush drive rubbers are a bit knackered, but they're like $100, so I'm just going to take a punt. Oh, hang on a second. I don't think we can do it like that. I think we've got to put this in, don't we? Yeah, I think we've got to do it that way. What do we got? That should start feeding in around about there somewhere. Done. Basically goes in there. Damn it, hang on a sec, we'll do this again. Rosie, I'm failing.
Sounds like here.
Oh, can you come here? Can you just go on the other side? See this wheel? Just hold the top of it, pull it toward you a bit.
Wait, here?
Yeah, just pull it toward you, don't let it fall, that's all. Yeah, sort of like that. Hang on, let me just feed you the stuff in here. The wind's up again.
Puss!
Puss, yes, I said that. Hang on. Now, lift him up a bit, and I think. Hold on a minute.
I feel like such a bloke right now. It's amazing.
Thank you, Rosa. Let it go.
And then it drops.
Oh, yes, we have a wheelie bob. Looking at those rear shocks, I really didn't like these. Well, I liked them when I pulled them out of the pack. Then I put them on, I thought, nah, they're too chunky. But I think, pardon me, once the indicators are on, all that sort of stuff, I think they'll be all right. I'm still a little disappointed with the front gaiters. I think they're just a little bit too chunky. The length and the when I bought them, we checked the length and the ID of both ends, and it looked fine. They're just a little bit chunky. Right, we've got the bike here. Lovely little two-smoke engine ready to go in. It's sitting on a $14 LD dolly I bought for moving transmissions around. Haven't used it much though. Right, so looking at this, the way it's mounted, I haven't read the manual, which is normal for me because I'm a bit silly like that. It looks as though it can go in either side, or from either side. I can't see any issue with putting it in. I would actually sooner put it in from the right, stick it in over that way, where the engine is now. But for the purpose of filming, I might do it from the other side. It might be a little bit easier. But anyway, look, I'm just going to get some rags, throw them over the frame, take those bolts out, get a box to sit the engine on. I want it high, so I can just lift it down and in, and we should be good. It's been a bit awkward getting it in from this side. It's not the side I normally do it from. I'll get that to stay there. Whoops, the good thing is, it actually isn't very heavy. I'm just going to stick a bolt through the back, pull that bit of carpet out, and then I'll straighten it up. There we go. Why is that crooked? Oh, it's got to go over. There stopping it now. A bit more. There we go. Right. Pop the spacer, there's a spacer that goes in here, this guy here, to keep the engine where it's meant to be. That can go on. Actually, that bolt might be the wrong way around because your brake pedal spring and everything goes over this side. I wonder if it'll get in the way. If it does, no big deal. We'll sort it out. So there's only 3 bolts that hold this guy in. 2 large ones at the top and 1 down the centre at the bottom. I'm just having a look under here. There's a couple of eyes. Oh, there's another couple under here too. Yeah. Which I think is what that's for. Yes, it is. All right. It's not quite lined up. How far out is it? Oh, I can see. It was pushing. There we go. Tighten some bolts. And chicken dinner. Another reason why I put it in from this side, I was actually much more comfortable going in from here, but the oil line, apparently these are really, really difficult to get, and I didn't want it to be tangled up anyway, so did well. This is apparently a good runner. If it runs well, I'm just going to leave it. You see Neil's, the previous owner, has done a good job polishing stuff and so forth. The biggest problem with these is they will break out here when the chain thrashes. Got to figure a way to get that on. Somebody said JB Weld, I'll sort something out. But I do have that spare engine somewhere. I'm in a dilemma because I've got 3 sets of indicators. Look at these, which are impeccable, but they're awfully long in the stalk. These stalks are interchangeable, you can take them off. I think that that just sticks out too far, as far as I'm concerned. The 350 has the same length of front indicator, turn signal if you prefer, and it doesn't look out of proportion on this. This is a slimmer bike. I think they are sticking out too far. Ultimately, the best choice I think is this one, and these are dirty and horrible, but these ones turn and stick out that much, and I think that's good. I think that looks really good. The problem I've got, and I've also got these, hang on, before I go any further, and I've got one sitting at the back. These are the aftermarket ones which Neil gave me with the bike, and they've got a steel post and a plastic body. The lenses are slightly different from the OE Suzuki ones, and these ones of course are really, really snugged in to where the light is, because your headlight mounts through here, and that doesn't look too bad, and I'm reasonably happy with that. The only problem is the threaded section there isn't enough to get into the secure the headlight. So with these ones, they're a lot longer in their thread. They're another 8mm maybe. So look, I'm thinking using a nicer housing. This housing's all battered, but using these on the front, or those stalks on a nicer light. Whoops. And around the back, going with these. Ultimately, again, I think the fact that the shocks look so chunky, these would probably look better. They'd stick out a better distance, but I've only got 2 of those. It's even worth machining up, turning a new set to that length. So they, again, just stick out far too much. So I think that looks alright. The other thing is you're not likely to kick them when you get on the thing anyway. Battery box is just sitting there for now, and you can see already, once some of this stuff's in, it hides all the nasty chrome on that rear guard. So I think ultimately, when the thing's together, it's still going to look good. These exhausts are pretty hammered. There was another set of Gumtree. You can see this has got brazing in it, and the chrome's rubbish and all that sort of stuff. I can't really do too much about that. But yeah, there was a guy on Gumtree selling a set. Hang on, I'm going to pop that in there. And $200. And I thought about it and thought, well, I've got 2 sets of exhaust. But I'm thinking I might get in touch and see if he's still got them. He's just go in under the foot peg. And I'll just try and clean up a bit more, but don't like my chances. What do we got? That just looks shocking. What's going on here? No, they're a nice shape and everything, and they just look terrible. Getting a bit ahead of myself. I should have put the foot pegs and, because in this case, the stand and everything on before the exhaust. So on the other side, I'll stick the brake pedal on and that sort of stuff. This is just your side stand, obviously. Right, that's about right there. This is the original bolt. Uses like a half nut over the top to lock it on. If you tighten it up too much from the other side, it will clamp up too much over the thing. There's going to put a bit of Loctite on there. A very thin flat washer, which I should have put on first. That was just friggin' stupid. Well, whatever. And the nut, the lock washer will stop it from, or at least the flat washer will stop it from chafing the powder coating. Or we can just dip that up against it. And that way you've got, you know, your threads poking out the right amount. That's cool, right. I've just popped this muffler off again. The powder coating on that thing was making this bind, making the brake pedal bind. Normally when you send something in for powder coating, if they don't already see it, I always put a bit of masking tape around the parts I want protected from the powder coat. And the powder coaters can then see it because it's orange and just put their special tape on, because the oven's 300 odd degrees and masking tape won't last. So I've just been going around, you know, this has been quite tough to get off. There's a primer under there. So I could sort of get to it with the exhaust on, but I thought, oh, I'll take it off. I forgot to put the brake stay on and stuff like that. But the idea is we have a brake pedal that doesn't bind. So obviously that's almost there. That's actually pretty good. It's a little bit, I want it to be floppy. And of course there's a spring that sort of sits in behind here, hooks around the frame and then hooks around this bit here. I don't know where, I've left it on the table. Right, well that looks a lot better. That's how it should be. There's two foot peg types. Well, two per bike if you like. One with the dog leg, one without. The one with the dog leg actually fits in there to avoid the brake pedal, so we can pop that in. And the original Suzuki hardware, I think, was all it was domed, but it was all rusted and looked terrible. I did clean this thread up, didn't I? I'm a bit of an idiot because I forgot to do this side. This was the side the frame was sitting against the wall. So I'll just clean these threads up a bit. Alright. Things I'm not too sure of. The stop for the brake pedal, it should sort of sit there-ish, and it wants to sit up. This is just a cable, and it might take up the slack of the cable and sit up. There should be a bolt or something, some sort of stopper, I'm not sure. I need to look into that. So that side of the exhaust is on, and fine. I've tightened up the swing arm, that's all good. This side I can't, well this is just sitting here, but you need to take the exhaust off to get this cover off, and I've got to put that back on. But I've got to take this cover off to put the clutch mechanism in. So I'll leave it like it is for now and do something else. I've just discovered that the cable is what gives it the stop, so that fits in there. That goes in there, but this screws into here to give you the pedal height, which I've never seen that before. So that would mean it would sit there, which is about right. This cable, of course, has to be cleaned up and lubricated. It's still free, but it's still free, but it's dry and dirty. So I'll do this later. But that's a relief, actually. This is chrome, but I'll just do that bit on the outside. It's pretty mucky, but what do you do? Making some turn signals out of some good ones and some crummy ones. So here are lovely steel cased ones, and we'll use these with the different length post on them. The OE ones are the best, obviously. These have, well, they're steel casing, they're right. And we can just take these piers off. And they're dead easy to make. I can make them out of bright steel. These are chrome plated, but you can get bright steel. You can turn it really fine, run some 1000 grit if you like, or whatever, up and down it wet while it's on the lathe. Buff them out and then just clear them, whatever. I'm not going to chrome plate. They're just a little too long for my liking. Here's one the same. That's the old stand. I've got the length I want. Once it's chromed, it's very hard to cut this stuff. I don't know what it is. I'd sooner just make new ones. We've got to take that nut off because it looks terrible. This is the OE stuff. That's what I'm taking, and that's just beautiful. Look, it's sealed up around the bulb and also around the base of it there. That looks like an original type of globe too. The quality, if you like, I used to get back then. It's the reason people say they don't make stuff like they used to. I mean, look at it. It's rubber mounted. It's got this on it. Rubber mounted, so it doesn't shock the bulb, all sorts of stuff. So the quality is just, you know, and it's heavy, it weighs a ton. So they don't make stuff like that, and we're not going to use that. We're using these crummy ones. Now, these will have a different lens. The front lens will look like that, and the rear one's going to look like that. Don't think it matters too much. At the end of the day, some cars have only got one reverse light at the back anyway, so symmetry is not that important, I guess. But as long as they match at the front and then they match at the back, I don't care. I'm going to stick our mock indicators into this really poor headlight. It's a tempting. And that's rubbish, but what do you do? I think the original Suzuki one is a little bit narrower in a scallop section, so I'm reluctant to bend these, so they're sitting out of here. I'm reluctant to bend them because when I get the proper headlight, oh, I've just scraped the crap out of that. Never mind. Well, yeah, when I get the proper one, it'll pull them in. So they can sit like that. I'm not too fussed about it. I've just scraped the top of the headlight, scraped some of the clear off. That's an original spanner from my 354, the first one I had, which I've offset at some point many, many years ago. So I might straighten that out and put it back in the 350 when I'm finished doing the resto on that. What the hell's going on with this? Oh, there it is. So once the brakes are done, I can slide this off again and put the brake master on there. That'll do it. We can just feed the throttle cable down. This actually has the 3 branches, the 2 carburetors and the oil pump as well. So the new old stock one that came with the bike is actually the wrong one. This is an XL250 crankcase bolt, but it's perfect for this. It's a 6mm thread with a nice end on it. So stuff it. What's going on? A bit further around there somewhere. Oh, actually, how the hell are we going to put the combi switch on? That's going to work, is it? The grip looks crap anyway. That's got to go right up further. Damn it. What to do? Now, as far as this is concerned, all I did with this, I painted this in satin black, because that's all I had. I didn't want to go and buy more paint. And dusted a coat of clear on, then put 2 wet coats on top. Now I used a retarder in it because it was a warm day. Acrylic doesn't like being laid down in much more than sort of 22, 23 degrees, and it was about 25 or 26 when I did this anyway. Threw a retarder in the clear and it just flattened right down, which means we don't have to go through 1200 grit or anything, 1500. This is just 2000 straight on here. It's taken the peel out and we can go straight to buffing. I haven't put a lot of effort into some of the sides. You can see there that's got a dent in it, but the seat covers that. But yeah, I reckon that'll come up well. Also, not a bad idea, just a drop of washing liquid, just a drop literally in here, and the paper will glide over much more easily. Put the tank on to buff it. I think it's alright. Look, it's not great. It just feels just a tiny bit soft still. But there does appear some clarity in the paint. So what we'll do is we'll put that filler, what is it, the level lens thing back on, and we'll pop the badge on too. This is how you work in a crowded garage, with your small tripod on the boot lid of your Plymouth shooting down onto what it is you're working on. I've got to do something about the space in here, but every time I do a project, I don't want to sell it, you know what I mean? Hang on. It's in there somewhere, there it is there. Now these can be touched up with a bit of model paint, just white with a tiny bit of black in it. But I reckon that looks darn good. Now I haven't got another badge for the side cover. This is the side cover for the other side, and I've got to get another badge for it, which will have nuts behind it. It won't have the small things like that, but the guys at Costas gave me the right screws for it. And I reckon that looks pretty dandy. And my mum's security door. Yeah, so they've given us a bunch of them. They're the ones, that's the original one. There was only one of those. I've just used these. They're a tiny bit longer, better reach. We've got these ones here with little nylocks which you can use on the side cover. So they'll be fine. Right, carburetors. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to spend any time on this with these series of videos because there are literally 1,000 videos on YouTube about guys pulling carbies apart and blowing out orifices and pulling emulsifiers out, main jets and all this stuff. It's really straightforward, rudimentary cleaning stuff. These are the carburetors. For those interested, they're pretty clean. There's the bowl. That's as much as we need to talk about with that. Just be careful when you take the bowl off. A couple of taps on the bowl around it with the butt of your screwdriver, and it'll release, and 9 times out of 10 leave your gasket intact. Having said that, this machine did come with somewhere around this machine came with new gaskets and everything anyway, so I'm not going to put them in because I'm just going to bang these things back in and just hope for the best. Now, a bad idea to become very good friends with your dentist. That way you can get these old tools. They're medical, they have a shelf life, they can be sharpened a few times and the dentist will actually throw them out. They remain very, very good indeed for digging out gaskets. Don't be using a screwdriver around there because you'll damage the casing, right? So you use a dentist tool if you can find one. This one you can see is actually shiny. Someone's gooped it with Celastic, which is an absolute no-no, but what do you do? The other thing is, these move semi-smoothly. There's a bit of white powder in there, and that's moisture that started corrosion. This one, the slide won't go down. This guy here won't go down. So we need to clean that off. Now we're not going to clean it off aggressively. I'm going to use a toothbrush with some panel wipe and try and move it that way. If I don't have any success, then I'll use to something a tiny bit more abrasive. You don't want that surface in there getting damaged. Now, some of these bikes have a linkage that goes from the enricher thing here to the other side. This bike didn't have one. So they go like that. There's no provision on this side for the other one. So I'm tipping it only had the one. Whatever the case, we'll stick it on, we'll try it, and we'll go. Do I need to talk about anything else? No, I don't think so. I think that's all I need to mention. I wondered what these were, and now I found out. They actually have a cable exit there and a cap so that this doesn't get all soiled. So that's that. Couple of phenolic spacers that are used between the cylinder barrels and the carburetors themselves. We've got a couple of good ones and a couple of not so good ones. 2 different ones. That's not great because the original ones, which I'm tipping are those, one of them is broken. I don't know if they're going to work. No, they're smaller. So straight off the bat we've got an issue. They're not going to fit, which is something of a nuisance. So I'm going to have to start the machine with this broken one and then source another because that's all I've got. And they're the right ones for these carburetors. These might be off a GT185 or something, I don't know. So that's about it for carburetors. I might as well take you out here and have a look at this thing. Can't use these bars and I don't really want to. These are like the medium riser ones. I'll get the low riser because they're sort of shorter in this area here obviously. But there's more straight area. So you know, the wind's up. The master will fit. So the master's all the way fit there. And you know, the grip won't fit there sort of thing. So I've got to change the bars. The broken bit of engine case. Someone's actually made this. I thought that was a broken piece, but it's not. It's just a bit of sheet metal, and they've kind of carefully done that. That's cool. I can use that. I'll just stick it back on with some Araldite or JB or something like that. And I've got to put that Sir back on. That's pretty easy. We've got a clutch cable on. That's working well. I just had to back it off because I think I've routed it the wrong way around, but the clutch does operate well. This casing bit's broken pretty bad. Eventually I'll probably use the other block. Gear shift's on, I've just got to tighten that up, and it's got a new little boot on it. Chain, and the chain looks good. I didn't clean it very well, but probably wouldn't have bothered putting that on, but I just want to see if the thing runs, and you know, it might help with, you know, ascertaining the condition of the clutch and that sort of thing. It's just slow and steady, really. Just messing around. Right, just run a cutting disc through here just to open that up a bit because it's a little bit loose on the spline. The spline actually looks alright, but I'm just a bit worried. Is that hot? No, it's not too bad. I'm just a bit worried about, I just want it tight, so we'll try that. I didn't do the cut at the top, it was like that. I just widened the one down the bottom because it was wider where you can see that flared bit is, up to the top, so hopefully it'll be sufficient. I'll put a new boot on it as well. Let's stick it on the bike and see how we go. Okay, we can stick these on. You can see it with the chain guide on. That's what you call counting your chickens before they hatch. We don't know if this thing is even going to run. It was a pain in the ass putting it in, but anyway. These foot peg rubbers, the old ones were knackered. And got these through, I can't remember now. The CG125, and I've noticed a lot of things marketed for some of these bikes are actually marketed for other models and sold off in the thing as being suitable. The end of the day, they feel alright. They're a little bit slack around the first probably inch and a bit, tight at the end, so I've just used a bit of hairspray in there. Might even end up putting a bit of contact adhesive in there or whatever. I don't want them sliding when I'm on the thing. So we can put these on, and that sort of buttons up this side. This is from Aldi, $3.30. Schwarzkopf is at least twice the price. But even if your bike's fussy about a tear, this will be fine. And there's a grab him, push him on, and she'll be right. Cool. I'm going to get on the thing in a minute and just set up the brake pedal height and all this stuff. So I'll put that there. I've got the tack cable too. I cleaned it up last night. This is the rear brake cable. It looks crap, but at the end of the day, it's better looking crap than rattle counting it and making it look more crap. So what we need to do is set up the height of the pedal. There's a clevis goes in there, and I can just adjust the height by turning that thing. So we'll grab our clevis. Cotter pins, Americans call these. Cotter pins. Put him in. And a washer. And a splitty pin. What do they call them cotter pins? I can't remember. Just going to turn him around a bit so I can spread eagle this thing. There we go. And snip. There's still all this stupid polishing residue everywhere, and it bothers me, it annoys me. So, if I turn that, we can adjust the, we can see that, the height of that guy. So let's leave it somewhere there until I get on board. I'll just tentatively lock that off. This has got to go down through here. That was friggin' dumb, wasn't it? I should probably have threaded that down there first. Oh, there you go. Should be right. So I've just put the tack cable in. This will probably all come off again. I want to check the oil pump. There's a cam in there that can be fitted 180 degrees out. So what'll happen is it'll over oil at idle and provide not enough oil at full speed or at full throttle. There's residues everywhere. The other thing is, this is the cable. I don't know if this is the one that came with the bike. Well, it came with the bike to me, but I don't know if it's the one that came off. The end of it's wrong. That's the oil pump lever. I don't know. That determines throttle position to provide the oil at different engine speeds, if you know what I mean. And the end of it's all wrong. It's the same as what you would find on the carburetors themselves, right? So I'll have to fiddle and fart around with this, but I need to have that right because it'll determine the throttle play as well, at least the throttle travel. Moving up, this is why this headlight's rubbish. Normally bike headlights are scalloped in there to allow for the cable Now this cable fits on the tag, but the trajectory is all wrong on account of that headlight shell, which is why I need the right one. So I've had a problem with this phenolic spacer. This is a good one. The other one that fits the bike is broken. I've spent a few minutes just filing it out to accommodate a piece of, I think it's one of the cylinder head dowels from an XL250 that I had lying around. If it's a CB350 one, I'm pretty well knackered, but I'm sure it was surplus to my needs. But ganging those on top of one another means that they're identical. Yes, they are. And it's a means to an end, so I'll have to find another one. But this just means when I clamp the carburetor down, that's the right size, and we won't have any leaks. That's cool. So I'm happy with that. So Neil gave me gasket kits for these, which is kind of good. There's our mock repaired one. There's this one. I want to see if my record of this O-ring kit being absolutely useless for anything still holds. I have used 2 out of it for the back brake or the rear brake lever. I knew there was a felt one supposed to be there, but the manual did say an O-ring, but they're coming off anyway, so we're back to square one. What am I doing? Oh, carby. Right, let's have a look. No. Oh, hang on. Ah, look at that. Right, so if I get a ruler, that fits, damn it. Ugh, barely. Hang on a minute, let me get my other glasses. See if that's sitting proud. It kind of is. It is. Hold on. Let me see if I push it in. Yeah, not quite broad enough. So we might be sort of revisiting our record of this being completely useless. What about a slightly different size? No, it's too small. It looks like this one. It sits in there. I'm just wondering if it's quite... It seems to be sitting proud. This has had Celastic on it. Don't ever do that. Celastic belongs on exhausts, not in oil systems or fuel systems. Oh, look, I'm going to run with it. We'll see how we go. Bad idea to check these sorts of things for flatness. You can see this one was very high in the centre. It was actually bowed like that. And you can see it's low in the centre there. So a bit of glass with some wet and dry on it. The glasses will always be nice and flat, and you can get them back into some sort of shape. We're still got to do a bit more work on this, but they're getting there. Don't know if you can see. If I put a ruler there, I can't see from where you are. Oh, you might be able to see it there. The edges of contact in the ruler and the centre is almost a millimetre out, so that's never going to seal. Give you some idea of the distortion. It's still high on either side. We're just starting to contact in these areas here. So I've got to get that dead flat. It'll just run like a pig and lean out the way it is now. So keep going, it's still got a bow in it. Right, carbies are on. Bit of a pain in the neck when you forget to put this thing on there. I've got that, but I forgot to put the nut. So that was dumb. Yeah, just easy to get it off. You just flick that over into the smaller hole. Oh, it's gone back. Hang on, I'm looking at the wrong thing. There we go. That'll pop off. And this is used to sit over there and secure the thing in, and that little boot plugs up against it. So now I've got those on, I've got to go through this again, which is a bit of a pain because it's quite difficult to do. We've got a throttle. That's good. Got a clutch. That's awesome. Taking that stupid headlight off, which means now we can hook up the tacho cable. Right, so we've got the tack on. It's connected up. We can put the other headlight back. I'm going to put the cracked one on because even though it's cracked, it's going to work better than the other rubbish. And, well, I'll get rid of the other one. This stupid thing. That's never going to see service on any of my bikes. Not that any of my bikes have seen any service anyway. A couple of points of interest I want to talk to you about. I use this cable lubricator and I've done the rear brake cable, which is rather good, and the throttle. No, I didn't do the throttle. I did the clutch, sorry. The throttle cable, the end of it was wrong for the oil pump. And I found in a bag of stuff, there's a little brass adapter, which is essentially just a change from the small end that the throttle slides use to a larger sort of brake type one. And that's all working. And the problem is it's not actually returning. So that might mean fiddling around with it and trying it all out and all that sort of stuff, finding out why it's not returning because it needs to. When we first start this, we've got to move that right up like that. That's the maximum amount of oil that it can inject into the engine, which means it's going to smoke like crazy, but that will bleed these lines of any bubbles. I need to know about that though. We do have another oil pump which we can pull apart and have a look at, just to see the intricate workings of it, but there's not an awful lot in them. Tack drive, yeah, did the tacho cable too, that's all on, that's cool. The other thing is the oil, what do you call it? Oil tank. I was a bit concerned with how it all connected up. Of course, we've got this thing here. One of these, the tank, and these have, one of them has a left-hand thread, and of course, there's a small washer that goes in the rebate of this special nut, which is cut right and left hand. So that would be your right hand thread part there, I think. Hang on, which way does this go? Nope, it goes that way. Yep, it goes down like that. There's your O-ring sitting in the top, and it's an old one, but it's still supple, so I'm hoping it works. If it doesn't work, well, it's just going to be suck eggs, basically. I have to get another one. And of course, there's a little filter that goes up in there, and then we've got this guy, which screws on with a conventional thread, and a banjo fitting that basically goes into there. So I don't know how this is going to go without leaking. It could leak. It most likely will leak. That's as much joy as we're going to get out of that guy. And we might just have to put the banjo fitting on that side. It's pretty confusing though, if you haven't pulled it apart. But I want to have this full of oil. I want to kick it over and see if I can get any movement going here. But in the meantime, I'm just a little bit concerned about why that's sticking. I need to investigate that. The other thing I want to mention is this little peekaboo window for the oil level. I carefully painted this so that where the O-ring sealed, it didn't come into contact with the paint. I wanted bare metal behind there. Originally there was a panel type thing, which was more reflective, but it was kind of rusted, so I didn't bother. Now, if this wasn't poisonous, I'd drink this stuff. This is GM Sealer. I use it for, what do you call it, Welsh plugs and all sorts of stuff. It's used for threads that go into water jackets and stuff like that. It's solvent based. And I'm just going to pop a tiny bit. It dries nice and hard. But I'm just going to pop a tiny bit on this thread. Because this goes into the oil tank. And you can buy these windows. That's not bad, Nick. It's a bit discoloured, but I don't think it's worth replacing. And this will seal that hole where the thread goes into the oil tank and will stop oil leaking out. I'll get my Aldi O-ring kit, which has proven to be useless, and I'll just put an O-ring there as well. I think there's meant to be one there. And that'll seal up from, because there's going to be oil around this here, and I don't want it coming out where the screw comes through. What do you reckon? Looks pretty complete. A few things we've got to do. We'll start at the front. We've got to overhaul the front calipers and the master cylinder, put it on. Change out the bars for low riser ones, which are longer in this section here, as I said before. We need a headlight lens, because this one's got a crack all the way down. That's the original light, which just looks head and shoulders better than the other junk I had on there. A few parts to put on. There's a Kickstarter. I haven't finished. I've got to put an extra detent ball in. It's a little bit loose. They're the oil pump covers, the grip, the mirrors, the airbox, which we're not going to bother until we know it goes. The speedo cable's completely fried. See, solid, and it's broken off inside the sleeve up there. I thought that was an oil pump cover. Not sure what that is. I've got a couple of them though. Right, gaiters I was worried about. I'm not worried anymore. They are a bit big, but at the end of the day, once the bike's dressed like it is now, they don't look too bad. Instruments can stay there until we get roadworthy and it's on the road, and then we can change that. We've got to pull the petcock apart, the fuel tap, and just check it's not going to leak everywhere. I've glued that thing down there. Not sure about how well that's going to be, or how successful that repair is going to be. There's my nil nut. I'm really pleased with my nil nut. It's got a captive. It's got a thread, which is an old Honda bolt. Then there's a sort of a captive lock nut behind it, so that can't actually fall out. I've still got all that residue from buffing these things and That's a pain, but I can get that off, and the exhaust looks pretty mangy, but what do you do? And of course, the main thing is we've got to wire it. So that's how we're going to ascertain whether that engine's good, or I'm going to raid this one. Oh, and I checked this, that's free. It's not catching. The other one's catching there. And the spare one I've got is catching in the same spot. So it might be an idea if we pull the other one apart and have a look inside, see what's going on. And this, of course, this engine has a great set of cases with no brakes on it. So eventually we might rebuild this. I don't know what we're going to do. I've just got to make sure that is going to run. So the priority now is to basically get it going. So that's what's going to happen in the next video. We're going to fit up a few parts, basically finish the thing off, wire it up, get some spark, put some fuel in, some oil in, and get the thing running. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Take good care of yourselves, enjoy the classic, and I'll see you around.